Hi friend, do you ever feel like standard leadership advice just doesn't work for you? Well, welcome to Leadership from Within. In this podcast, we will discover your unique leadership style. We dive into the world of MBTI and Big Five. We shape leadership strategies that truly fit you. Join us on this journey to find out the one-of-a-kind leader you are. Let's get started. Hey everyone, we're super excited to have Greg Sarafin here with us today. Greg is an ENTP leader who truly gets the art of strategic partnerships. Over the past 6 years, he's played a critical role in transforming EY, helping to turn it into a powerhouse in ecosystem value creation. He's managed to skyrocket revenues generated by the EY partner ecosystem, taking it from 1 billion all the way up to 8 billion. On top of that, he sets EY's global strategy and oversees the management of their top strategic relationships. So, to get things rolling, let's dive in and ask Greg to share a bit about himself and his journey.
I'm Greg Sarafin. I am currently a partner at EY. For the last 6 years at EY, I have been leading the EY partner ecosystem. And in my career, I've had roles in partner, in revenue, and running accounts, and as a general manager of businesses. Started my career 40 years ago when I sold my first deal when I was in college. And primarily, I'm a technology is sort of my strength. My engineering background is sort of what I've drawn. And then, of course, I've had roles in just about every function of a company since then.
First off, I was curious to know if Greg's leadership style was something that just came naturally to him, or if it was a skill he had to sharpen and develop over time.
Much like a professional athlete, has certain things about them that if they work at it, they can become a good professional athlete, whereas other people can work on it all they want and they will never become a professional athlete, right? So I do think I had certain things in terms of my brain structure, I guess I'll use that term if I can, that made me somebody that could work at being a good leader. But I will tell you, I was a disaster at it when I was younger. And it's been a lot of personal development in my journey to get to the point where I could in the mirror and say that I'm a good leader. And, it was probably 20 years into my career where probably say was the sort of cutover point where I sort of made that transition. Up until that point, I was clever and I did some really cool things and had some wins, made some mistakes, but it was really a realization that to be a leader, you have to think about, what is your leadership style going to be, and then how do you develop the muscle memory, as it were, to be effective at it. So it was both. I think it's hard to fake leadership because people generally, even if early on they can't suss through somebody, ultimately when you're working with somebody over a long period and you're going through the ups and downs and the challenges of the business environment, their true nature is going to come through. And so if you're not building a leadership style around your true nature, then at some point it's going to become very apparent to those around you that there's that dichotomy and it will no longer be effective. So I do believe that you've got to build a leadership style that is aligned to your sort of natural proclivities.
ENTPs are naturally inclined towards innovation and have a knack for seeing the big picture. They think critically and strategically, always considering various possibilities and outcomes. They also value authenticity and genuineness in their endeavor. Pay close attention to this part of the conversation to gain insights from the leadership style of a seasoned ENTP leader.
We should all be ambitious. So I tend to encourage myself and the people on the team to think big and to think a little disruptively, a little innovatively, and to set big ambitions. So that's sort of one thing I would say is a characteristic. Another is I believe in this sort of the holy trinity of you've got to have a really good strategy that aligns to your ambition and is likely to succeed. Strategy, it's like a bet. You never know what's going to succeed. It's, you hope that your strategy is a good strategy. But so that's the first thing. And then the second thing is you don't go straight from strategy to, oh, let's go out there and sell something. There is a what I call the infrastructure build mentality. So you have to every year you have to build a little more maturity in your processes and a little more maturity in how you approach the market. And you have to invest in technology and other things that are going to enable whatever business you are operating. So you can't go straight from strategy to execution. You do need to have that second pillar, which is you need to have a maturity model in mind. And every year you need to take another step up that maturity model in terms of your infrastructure, your processes, and so forth. And then the third pillar is you've got to have maniacal execution in the market, right? You've got your strategy, you've got your platform, you need to get out there, you need to execute, and you need to do it with a sense of purpose and also belief in what you're doing, because you can have a great strategy and great infrastructure, but if you don't believe in the value of something you're selling, or your team doesn't believe in that value, then you're probably not going to be successful very long, if at all. And then the final thing I would say is that I like to lead in the field. So I don't sit in an office and make stuff up and then have other people do it. I get out there with the team. What I traditionally do is I'm the person who is sort of doing whatever's next and testing out what works and doesn't work, but building a team behind that is scaling what was previous. And so in that way, I'm not asking anybody to do anything that I haven't done or that I don't understand. And I'm also not saying that only the people are responsible for the outcome. I'm also party to that responsibility. And so I find that as a very effective thing for me. The phrase I've heard people use is leading from the front. That's kind of how I think about it.
Continuing on, Greg delved into his approach for crafting a winner strategy. Here, you can really see how his ENTP leadership traits, innovative, analytical, strategic, and ambitious, played a critical role throughout the process.
Well, for me, a strategy has a few elements to it. One is you have to believe that there's going to be a distinct way that you can create value that you can separate yourself from any competitors. Now, that distinction may not be valued by your customers the way you think it is, but there has to be a distinction in your strategy. Then the second thing is you've got to have a strategy that's at least born in some understanding of the industry and the functions that you're selling into or building into. You can't just come in not understanding the business that you've been asked to operate and then dream up a strategy. And so that's what VCs do, right? They fund lots of little companies that each of whom have this really cool strategy, 1 in 20 of which are maybe successful, but that's okay because they're so successful that VCs make money for their LPs. In the corporate world, that doesn't work that way. You don't get a 1 in 20. You don't even get a 1 in 2. Usually, you got to have a 1 for 1. So you've got to have a real good understanding of your market, of your business, of what's possible to inform whatever that distinct strategy is. And then you've got to sort of play that strategy out. What does it look like a year, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years out? So you're sort of anchoring that strategy in market share, in buying behaviors, in selling motions, in the value of the solutions or products that you're bringing to market and how that evolves over time. So all those things I think are part and parcel, for me at least, of thinking of inventing or creating a business strategy. But again, it starts with ambition, and it starts with being really, really informed about whatever segment of the market that you are building into.
In MBTI terms, the perceiving function opens us up to new ideas, while thinking ensures they are logically applied. Together, they empower a holistic understanding of processes and patterns. Coming up, Greg shares how he's honed this skill and how his experiences played a part in developing this ability.
Part of it's just the way my mind works. So I've always been one of those people that can see a business process. Like I can see how all the different parts of the process work and how they're connected and how they incorporate the different people into the process and the technologies that support the process and the steps in the process. So, and I'm also a person that people that know me are always like, you only need to go someplace once and then you can always get back there again without a map. I'm like, yeah, because to me, that's how I remember things. I remember things relative to everything else. So I remember how things are connected. So for me, it's been a very natural progression. Learned how the different functions of a company relate to each other to operate the company and create value for stakeholders. As I've learned how different business processes operate and are optimized or sub-optimized across different functions of the company, as I've seen different commercial models over the years that work well or don't work so well, and what about them is efficient and accretive and what about them is inefficient and dilutive.
The great thing about consulting is that we work across multiple clients in multiple industries in multiple job functions. So we have a unique opportunity to gain perspective, to understand how things work together in a bigger picture manner.
So these are the sorts of things that I look for. And then those all sort of become connected patterns for me. When I'm presented with any fact pattern today, I'm generally very good at then being able to infer from that fact pattern, because I understand those connections and that connectivity, how to optimize or work with or whatever it is I'm trying to do with that fact pattern. Now, not everybody thinks that way. You know, some people have didactic memory and they can remember pictures and they can remember words and so I think each person has got to look at their toolkit and how they can create that picture of connectivity and how things work.
I went on to inquire about Greg's journey in evolving his leadership style over time. It became apparent that even without access to direct mentorship, which some individuals are more privileged to have, one can still cultivate a comprehensive leadership approach by remaining observant and attentive to their environment.
The truth is, I've never really had people that I considered direct mentors or even a book. You know, I've read a lot of the populist business books, and I've read, for me, what works better than having a mentor is being a keen observer of multiple people who I view as either very successful or very unsuccessful. And in my observation of those people, understanding what are the factors, if they're successful, that are driving that success that I should be paying more attention to and adopting, or if they're unsuccessful, or when I'm unsuccessful, picking apart what are the derailment elements that are causing that lack of success. So for me, it's less about a mentor or a handful of mentors, hundreds of people, probably thousands of people at this point in my career, that I have learned from through interaction and observation. And, you know, each one adds a little bit. And then the aggregate of all those bits has been quite helpful.
As a comprehensive business leader, Greg has refined his empathy skills, shedding light on their significance for experienced leaders. Younger leaders with a thinking orientation might find this segment of our discussion particularly enlightening, as it offers valuable perspectives on cultivating a balanced leadership style.
Well, there's certainly people who have observed who have said, wow, that person's really good at establishing instant rapport and empathy, and within a very short period of time, understanding what are the important emotional drivers for whoever they're interacting with. So I've certainly observed the behaviors of others. I tend more towards the logic and the system thinking, but I am a human being with empathy. And I certainly have experienced a lot of, or my fair share of stressors, you know, life-threatening medical conditions, stress mentally, and through, you know, a lot of the typical things that people go through in their lives that are stressors, as well as opportunities. So I have observed and I have worked very hard on my own sort of being in tune to be not over-indexing on the logical value creation and always trying to find that balance of what's empirical or quantifiable value is not necessarily the full story. You've got to also have the value to each individual in the system through the lens of what's emotionally important to them, not just empirically important. See, I just didn't exercise the muscle for a long time. And then when I did start to exercise the muscle, became much more effective at leading and getting things done and driving business results.
Greg really put a spotlight on how crucial it is to learn from people with all kinds of different personalities. He walked us through his own experience, showing how he eventually came to understand this important lesson.
One of the hardest things for humans to do, just because of the way we are programmed from 100,000 years ago, is to recognize that diversity of thought is kind of approach to problem solving or driving outcomes is important to embrace. I used to love to be with a bunch of people that thought like me. It didn't matter what their religion or their ethnicity or that was. I was always sort of a diverse, inclusive person that way. But I was not a diverse, inclusive person when it came to personality type. I used to like to just focus on people that were sort of similar to me in their personality and their approach to things. And so I really wasn't helping myself or helping whatever company that my company or the company I was working for the way that I should. So I actually look forward to working with people who have a completely different perspective and a completely different way of thinking and operating than I do. And I look at it as an opportunity to improve my skills of engagement and of effective leadership and or management, as well as an opportunity to diversify and hopefully make stronger whatever it is we're trying to accomplish. I do understand there are cases, and I've certainly borne witness to this, where person A works for person B, and just because of where each of those people is emotionally and where they are in their career journey and sort of the nature of them and everything else, it's an accident looking for a place to happen. And the accident usually does occur, and it's not good. So I'm not naive enough to think that everybody can work for everybody else and have an effective toolkit for creating value together. But I do look at differences as an opportunity to learn and also to create something better than if a bunch of people with similar mindsets all sat in a room together.
We've divided our conversation with Greg into two engaging parts. In this initial segment, he's taken us through his journey and shared his unique approach to leadership. Make sure you stay tuned for the second part of our interview, where Greg will delve into strategic partnership and share the valuable lessons he learned along the way to mastering this skill. Thanks for being with us today on Leadership from Within. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights to empower your leadership journey. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to subscribe and share it with others. And remember, if you have any specific questions about leadership, we're just an email away. See you in the next one.